The storm had passed, leaving behind a heavy silence that clung to the rusting bones of the ship like wet linen. The air reeked of salt, oil, and the slow decay of metal forgotten by time. Water trickled from the upper decks, dripping in rhythmic intervals, forming puddles around lifeless equipment. Somewhere deep in the bowels of the vessel, a shape stirred. Arlo opened his eyes. His body was curled on a bed of damp canvas, wedged between a collapsed locker and a fallen beam. His fur, matted and streaked with filth, clung to his skin. Salt crystals lined the tips of his ears. He tried to move, but a sharp bolt of pain ran through his left hind leg. He paused, breathing shallow, as his senses reached into the emptiness around him. No footsteps, no voices, no scent of man. Only the groan of iron, the whisper of wind slipping through vents, and the slow heartbeat of waves striking the hull. He rose carefully, weight shifting from limb to limb, muscles protesting with each stretch. His nails scraped lightly on the metal floor. He sniffed. Traces of something familiar lingered, thin and ghost-like. Engine oil, old sweat, leather, gunpowder, echoes of men now gone. The corridor beyond the broken door yawned into shadows. Arlo moved toward it. Each step was measured, silent, almost ceremonial. His head low, ears flicking, he passed through the tilted passageway of twisted steel and frayed cables. A half-crushed crate blocked his path, filled with sodden uniforms and molding papers. He stepped over it. The world beyond opened slowly. He emerged into the crew bay, a graveyard of bunks and lockers, chairs floating slightly in stagnant pools. Light bled through a cracked porthole, casting long reflections across the water. Dust floated like ash in the damp air. Arlo stood still for a moment, ears raised. The ship was vast, half alive, like a breathing carcass. It had not yet collapsed into complete silence. It still remembered motion. On the far side of the bay, a stairwell led up. He ascended. At the top, the hatch was half open. Salt wind poured through it like breath from another world. Arlo stepped out. The sky greeted him. Overcast, low, and heavy, the storm's remnants dragging their skirts across the horizon. The deck was wide, open, rusted red with long stripes of blackened soot. Cranes hung like broken limbs over the side. A torn net flapped against the mast. And in the far distance, only sea, endless, rolling, silver. He padded forward, slow and deliberate, his paws leaving wet imprints behind him. The bridge loomed above, silent, windows shattered, antennae bent like reed stalks. He circled the base, nose to the ground. No fresh scent, no sign of movement, just memories embedded in metal. This place had known men. It had carried war, and now it carried only him. He moved along the edge, peering through the rusted railing. Below, the lifeboats were gone, torn free or never launched. The lower deck was littered with splinters, metal drums, and ropes half swallowed by algae. He caught a flicker of color, a life jacket pressed against a ventilation pipe. It fluttered faintly in the breeze. He sat. His chest rose and fell in long, slow breaths. His tail lay still beside him. The sea sang a low song of repetition, of return, of waiting. And as he watched the horizon, unmoving, his mind wandered. A boot print on the deck, a firm hand on his back, a sharp whistle followed by motion. Running. Voices. The scent of command. Gone. He closed his eyes and listened, not to the wind, nor to the creaking steel, but to the silence that lived within the silence. He had awakened, yes. But to what? Not a world of men. Not to orders or duty. To memory. To the shell of purpose. To the rusting crown of a sunken kingdom, now his alone. The days had no voice. Time aboard the ship moved without edges. No sunrise announced its dominion. No sunset mourned its end. Light came and went in veils of gray, filtered through low-hanging clouds and salt-smudged glass. The ship floated like a ghost, unmoving in the cradle of the sea, surrounded by infinity. And Arlo moved with it. He had begun to trace paths, not random, but purposeful, disciplined, familiar. Routes once walked by booted men now belonged to his silent paws. He rose with the wind and slept beneath the low hum of forgotten engines. Each corridor he passed bore fragments of scent, shards of memory embedded in the metal. Some sharp, some faded. All empty. On the second morning, or what he felt was morning, He found the first mark. It was faint, nearly washed away by rain and time. A partial footprint on the upper deck, caught in rust and salt. Not recent. No, the edges were crumbling, the shape eroded. But it had been human. And for a long while, Arlo stood over it, nose lowered, as if trying to summon the body that had once pressed it there. His ears twitched. His tail stiffened. Then he moved on. He found the galley next, a shattered mess of overturned trays and rust-stained walls. An old pot still hung from a hook, swinging ever so slightly. The refrigerator door hung ajar. He nudged it with his snout. Inside, all had long spoiled, but among the rot, a corner of dried jerky clung to the inner shelf, forgotten. He took it gently, chewed without pleasure. Hunger was never a concern. Duty was. From there, he descended into the lower compartments. Darkness reigned below, thick, absolute, with no breeze to stir it. His eyes adjusted slowly. Along the hallway, cabins had collapsed under the weight of time. Some had doors barely hanging, others sealed completely. He stopped at each, sniffing the threshold, sensing what lingered behind. Sweat, gun oil, mold, loneliness. One cabin door stood ajar, light leaking through a fractured vent above. Inside, the room was frozen in time. A single cot, a duffel bag, collapsed. A mug tipped over on a desk. But Arlo did not look at these. His eyes were fixed on the figure lying beneath the blanket. Still, hollow, gone. Bones, dressed in the tatters of uniform. Skin long vanished, clothing sun-bleached and brittle. A name tag, unreadable. Boots placed neatly beside the cot. Arlo stepped forward and lowered himself beside the bed. He did not whimper. He did not move. He simply lay there, head resting on his paws, ears still, eyes half closed. The air carried no scent of life, but something deeper than instinct told him this had been someone. A voice, a comrade. Perhaps not his, but one of the many. And that was enough. Hours passed. The ship creaked as though in mourning. When he rose, it was without urgency. He paused at the foot of the cot, placed one paw against the floor, and gently nosed the space beside the figure. Then turned and left. Back through the hallway. Back up the stairs. The sky had grown pale, and the sea around the ship moved like a soft breath. Seagulls circled, but did not land. Arlo walked to the bow, and stood beneath the bent figurehead, a metal lion, once majestic, now rust-eaten and toothless. He looked out over the water, the wind pressing against his fur. He stood still for a long time. Behind him, the ship carried its memories in steel. Before him, the ocean offered nothing but reflection. And under his feet, old footprints remained, not just from men, but now his own. He was becoming the story this ship would remember. The wind returned with weight. It rolled across the deck in long sighs, rattling the loose metal panels and tugging at the frayed remains of a signal flag caught on the mast. The clouds above hung thick and mournful, and though the sea below whispered in patient rhythms, something in the air had shifted, as if the ship itself had exhaled. Arlo lay curled in the shadow of the bridge, sheltered beneath a lifeboat, housing that no longer held boats. His body was still, but his eyes remained open, unblinking, tracking the sky. His ears twitched with every gust, not in fear, in recognition. He had heard such winds before. In the bay of a warship. In the hush before chaos. His sleep came in pieces now. When it did, it arrived not as rest, but as memory. In one fragment, he saw himself running beside a line of boots. Dust. Sunday. The metallic clang of tools. A whistle. His own muscles coiled and released with perfect symmetry. No words. Only motion and rhythm and the warm scent of his handler's uniform. Then water. He remembered the leap from the side of a smaller craft, foam in his nostrils, weightlessness in his belly. His body cut the waves with the precision of instinct. He'd swum toward another vessel. Faster, lower, smoke rising from its deck. And he remembered climbing back aboard, teeth locked on a rope, dragging something that once cried and now did not. Then dark. A hallway. Muffled sound. Explosions too distant to reach the ears, but loud enough to echo in the bones. Then silence again. He opened his eyes. The bridge loomed above, as if listening. Arlo rose. He walked slowly around the base, his paws brushing fallen shards of glass and curled metal panels. A door, half broken from its hinges, gave way with a hollow creak. Inside, the command room waited. A theater without actors, lit only by the fractured sky above. He stepped inside. The panels were scorched, screens shattered, levers bent and rusted. But in the far corner, still intact beneath a table, was the object he hadn't known he was seeking. A vest. Tactical. Navy issue. Black. The fabric torn at the shoulder, faded insignia at the chest. His nose lowered slowly. He didn't need to touch it. The scent washed over him like smoke through old trees. It was his. Not the vest itself, but the man who had worn it. The smell was faint, buried beneath layers of salt and time, but real. That distinct warmth of sun and leather, skin and sweat, discipline and affection. Arlo lowered his body beside it. Slowly, reverently. He pressed his snout into the folds of the fabric and stayed that way. Outside, the wind scraped across the broken antenna. Inside, no motion but breath. He did not dream this time. He remembered. The rhythm of a hand on his back. The metallic click of a buckle before a drop. A warm laugh, though he had never known the word for it. A fall. A scream. A silence. And then, only the ocean and the groan of the ship that carried him. He stood again after long minutes, vest still at his feet. He did not take it. He could not. Instead, he circled it once, then walked to the shattered window. Through it, the ocean seemed to listen. He raised his nose to the wind. Somewhere, a signal light flickered weakly from the damaged mast, not from power, but from sunlight catching a cracked lens. He watched it blink. Once. Then again. An accident, perhaps. But Arlo did not believe in accidents. He turned from the bridge and began his patrol anew. Nose low. Gait slow. Eyes clear. As he passed the mess hall, he paused, staring briefly at a painting on the wall. An old naval crest, chipped and faded. The ship was not dead. It remembered. And so would he. If no one else returned, he would still walk these decks. If no one else listened, he would still keep vigil. The vest remained where it lay, a relic of belonging. But Arlo carried its memory now, salted and folded into the rhythm of his heartbeat. Night came differently at sea. There was no full dark, only a slow fading of color, a dimming of steel into shadow. The horizon vanished, blurred into the water. Stars flickered, then disappeared behind veils of drifting cloud. The ship became a silhouette, a husk held afloat by memory and metal fatigue. Arlo stood alone on the aft deck. Behind him, the bridge loomed quiet. Before him, the ocean stretched without end. The sound of the waves against the hull was constant, never harsh, never loud. Just the slow, rhythmic breath of something far older than any ship. He lowered his body to the deck. Beneath his paws, the steel was cool. The scent of salt clung to everything. From his vantage point, he could see the broken mast, the twisted remains of the communications tower, the place where a flare launcher once sat. All dead, but not empty. The ship still dreamed. In sleep, Arlo drifted not into oblivion, but into presence. Not memory. Something closer. Something that lived inside the steel, and now inside him. He was back in a hallway of flashing lights. Red, amber, then darkness. Boots ran past him. Smoke. The vibration of gunfire. The scent of fire and urgency. He followed without hesitation, body low, eyes scanning. The corridor split in two. He knew where to go. Then, the scent of blood. Oil. Wet rope. A hatch swinging open. Then sky. Sea. Cold. He leapt from dream to dream, like stepping across floating boards. And then stillness. He woke with a start. Above, clouds churned in slow spirals. Rain had begun to fall, soft and cold, more mist than downpour. The world was silver. The deck beneath him slick with water. And yet, something in the air had shifted. Arlo rose, ears alert. He moved toward the forward deck, paws quiet against the metal. Water pooled around scattered gear, crates, ropes, pieces of harness still buckled to nothing. He paused at the base of the signal mast. The cracked lens glinted faintly, catching what little light remained. He raised his gaze upward. High above, something fluttered. The torn remains of a flag. A single strip of it moved in the wind. And beyond that, a sound. Low. Mechanical. Far off. It vanished as quickly as it came, swallowed by the wind. A trick of memory? Or reality brushing against his solitude? He did not know. What he did know was movement. His body shifted into readiness. Not alarm, not fear, but preparation. He began to walk the perimeter of the ship, tracing the edges he knew so well by now. Each stair, each hatch, each rusted seam. He paused at the galley, sniffed the air. Nothing new. And then he returned to the bridge. Inside, the vest still lay undisturbed. He brushed it once with his snout and lay beside it, as though keeping watch. Not guarding, accompanying. The rain grew louder. The ocean rose slightly, its voice deeper. He closed his eyes. And in that moment, he saw his handler's face. Not as a sharp image, but as a form built of feeling. Warmth. Certainty. The soundless command that passed between them when words were not needed. In that sleep, Arlo dreamed not of war, or storms, or missions. He dreamed of walking. A long path of sand. Gull cries overhead. A hand at his side. And for the first time in many nights, he slept without tension in his limbs. Because in the heart of a dying ship, beneath the weight of clouds, he had become more than a survivor. He had become memory itself. Not a shadow of the past, but the shape it leaves behind. The wind changed. It arrived not as a howl or a scream, but as a steady current, warm and unfamiliar. The ship groaned beneath it, the hull flexing with slow complaint. Above, clouds broke open to reveal a pale sky, and the sun returned, not golden, but the color of old brass. The light struck the deck in long shafts, revealing details forgotten in the grayness. The etching of names on steel panels, the scorch marks near the stern, a trail of paw prints rusted into permanence. Arlo stood once more at the bow. His fur, darker now with salt and time, rippled in the breeze. His legs were slower to stretch. His breath was deep, but not sharp. He had stopped searching the horizon weeks ago. The sea offered no answers, only reflection. And yet, this morning, he lifted his head. There, in the distance, a shape. Small, distant, but real. It glided low, too smooth for a bird. The sound came a moment later, the steady chop of blades, cutting the air like the ticking of an invisible clock. A helicopter. Military. Painted dull gray, like a shadow made solid. It drew closer. Arlo did not bark. He did not run. He did not hide. He stepped toward the center of the deck, past the shattered remains of the mast, past the vest folded neatly beneath the bridge door. His paws moved with the deliberate rhythm of parade steps, steady, proud, exact. Above him, the aircraft hovered, wind from its rotors whipping across the ship, scattering debris and dust into the air. Figures peered from the open side doors. Gear hung from their belts. Helmets gleamed. A voice crackled through a speaker, hollow, distant, incomprehensible. But Arlo remained still. He raised his head. His ears stood tall. He was not asking to be rescued. He was reporting for duty. A rope unspooled from the helicopter, coiling like a snake onto the deck. A soldier began to descend, slow, cautious. His boots hit the steel a few feet away. Another followed. Their feet echoed through the silent wreck. They moved toward him. Arlo did not move. They paused, gesturing, speaking words lost in the noise. One knelt, reached out. Still, Arlo did not move. Behind him, the ship creaked once more, as if exhaling its final breath. The soldiers looked around, at the broken shell of the vessel, at the ruin it had become. But there was something in their stance that shifted, reverence, understanding. They lowered their heads. One of them took a small black tag from his pocket and clipped it to the signal mast. Identified. They did not take him. They did not lift him into the air, away from the place he had claimed. They left him there, sentinel of silence, guardian of memory, captain of the forgotten. And as the helicopter rose again, wind howling over the steel, Arlo stood tall. His tail did not sway. His eyes followed the craft until it vanished into the morning haze. Then he turned, walked the perimeter of the ship once more, pawed at the railing, sniffed the air, and, finding all in order, returned to the bridge. He lay once more beside the vest. Outside, the flag fragment fluttered gently. Inside, no one stirred. But the ship was not empty. It had a name again, and it had a soul, wrapped in fur and silence and salt, who had never once abandoned post. The last raid was complete, and Arlo was home.